Welcome to Sino-Warfare with Ralph D. Sawyer. Subversive programs, whether simply to deter aggression or facilitate annihilating enemies, several programs to systematically subvert others were proposed early on. Although not intelligence-gathering efforts in the strictest sense, being knowledge-based, they were natural derivatives of spycraft. Another is advanced in the Six Secret Teachings, attributed to the great Zhou dynasty strategist known as the Tai Gong, but actually composed in the Warring States period, is conceived from the perspective of a righteous subject state, the Zhou, which is seeking to overthrow its overlord, the Shang, whose brutality and perversity were felt to have caused it to lose the right to rule, otherwise known as the mandate of heaven. The actual clash at Wu Yüe is discussed in our battle talks already available. The chapter entitled Civil Offensive proposes 12 measures. Although they are all directed to isolating and incapacitating the ruler, they naturally have greater applicability. A few heavily abbreviated examples are worth citing here. Third, covertly bribe his assistants and foster a deep relationship with them. Fourth, assist him in his licentiousness and his indulgence in music to dissipate his will. Provide generous gifts of pearls and jade, and ply him with beautiful women. Speak deferentially, listen respectfully, follow his commands, and accord with him in everything. He will never imagine you might be in conflict with him. 11th, block up his access. Subordinates all value rank and wealth and hate danger and misfortune. Secretly show them great respect and gradually bestow valuable gifts in order to gather in their outstanding talent. 12th, support his dissolute officials in order to confuse him. Now for the full 12 and their dynamics, you'll have to consult my Six Secret Teachings translation or my Tao of Spycraft. However, they were all directed toward creating trust, nurturing arrogance, fostering ignorance, undermining control, and prompting debauchery. Another Six Secret Teachings chapter, Three Doubts, adds the idea of destroying the people's support. Quote, estrange his favored officials by using his favorites, and disperse his people by means of the people. Now, if you want to estrange his close supporters, you must do it by using what they love, making gifts to those he favors, giving them what they want. Tempt them with what they find profitable. Make them ambitious. Those who covet profits will be extremely happy at the prospects, and their remaining doubts will be eliminated. Now, as always, the ruler should be debauched with manifold pleasures, licentious enjoyments, but he must also be obfuscated, cut off from accurate information, which is accomplished by corrupting his officials. This results in him losing the power and authority necessary to rule. Again quoting, without doubt, the Tao for attacking is to first obfuscate the king's clarity, and then attack his strength, destroy his greatness, and eliminate the people's misfortune. Debauch him with beautiful women, entice him with profit, nurture him with exquisite flavors, and provide him with the company of female musicians. Don't let him become aware of what is happening. As already seen, Qin's program had the greatest impact because it laid the foundation for its conquest of the realm. However, an extensive precursor, implemented by the state of Yüe at the end of the Spring and Autumn period, equally revised the world order and made Yue's resurgence possible under King Goujian's determined direction. Wu, then the realm's acknowledged power, perished as a result, and Yüe assumed Wu's formerly dominant position. Now, coming so quickly after Wu's rapid ascension through the acumen of his two great strategists, Sunzi and Wu Zishu, Wu's collapse startled the realm and attested to the efficiency of subversive measures. While the historical records preserve only vestiges, after the Han, the Wu Yüe Chunqiu's dramatic depiction of Yue's elaborate plan became widely known, and it was long deemed an accurate recounting by all but the strictest scholars. Despite its semi-fictional nature, The account informs subsequent contemplations of subversive measures and their applicability. I can only summarize the developments here, but a full account may be found in my Tao Spycraft. After a series of clashes near the end of the spring and autumn period, King Fuchai's powerful state of Wu reduced Yüe to a single enclave, where the king Goujian was allowed to maintain the ancestral sacrifices. Now, wanting to restore his kingdom and gain revenge, Goujian feigned abject obedience, even as he nurtured the populace and fostered agriculture. However, given the insurmountable discrepancy in strategic power, Goujian was compelled to adopt a multi-stage plan to subvert Wu. It required enormous resolution and 20 years to implement, but Yüe eventually succeeded in annihilating their enemy by mounting a sudden attack while Wu's forces were otherwise engaged. The diabolical 9-stage strategy that Wen Zhong suggested, which intermixed measures to nurture Yüe with those to subvert Wu, ended their death struggle. The melodramatic story, which is told in the chapter called Goujian's Secret Strategy, describes the program and Wu's response as King Fuchai deludedly rejected Wu Zishu's remonstrance and eventually killed him. Among Wen Zhong's measures are the following. Quote, second, give generous presents and monetary gifts to Wu's ruler, and please his ministers with numerous gifts and bribes. Fourth, present the ruler with beautiful women in order to befuddle his mind and confuse his plans. Fifth, send the ruler skilled artisans and excellent materials to entice him into building palaces and mansions and exhausting their wealth. Eighth, enrich your own country and prepare the implements of war. And ninth, discipline your soldiers in order to exploit the ruler's perversity. Now, Wen Zhong premised the effectiveness of his subversive measures on thorough knowledge. He advised Goujian, if you want to attack the state of Wu, you must first seek out what they love and participate in what they like. Once he acquired the necessary information, he structured the measures to exploit the king's weaknesses. For example, the king of Wu loves to erect palaces and mansions, and he employs his workers without respite. Your Majesty should select some sacred materials from our famous mountains and present them to the king. Okay, the results are depicted in some detail. Quote, the king of Wu accepted them, and he erected a tower at Gusu. It took 3 years to assemble the components, and 5 to complete it. From its height, a person could see some 70 li. Men died on the roads. The sound of wailing and crying was unbroken in the lanes and alleys. The people were exhausted, and the officials embittered. The populace had nothing by which to live. Another measure exploited the allure of beauty and the king's inclination to debauchery. Quote, in his 12th year, Goujian addressed Wen Zhong, I've heard that the king of Wu is licentious. He loves beauty to the point of confusion, and drinks so heavily that he neglects state affairs. Can we devise some plot to exploit this? And Wen Zhong replied, we can destroy him. The king is licentious, and loves beauty, while his chancellor Bo Pi flatters him in order to gain control of his heart. If we present beautiful women through Bo Pi's intercession, he will certainly accept them. Your Majesty need only select 2 beautiful women and forward them. However, this wasn't a matter of simply choosing a couple of attractive women from the populace, but instead of first refining them. According to the annals, quote, Goujian had his prime minister obtain 2 women named Shi and Chengdan, then had them adorned with the finest silks, taught manners and bearing, and educated. When Bo Pi presented them, Wu Zishu futilely pointed out it was a deliberate ploy, and that China's first 3 dynasties had all perished because their rulers became fascinated by beautiful women. Unwilling to listen, the king accepted the women. The final blow, a 2-step program intended to empty Wu's grain reserves and destroy their next crop with infertile grain. Perhaps the world's first direct strike against the nation's food supplies was particularly heinous. Yüe, which enjoyed a superior growing climate, had developed a comparatively robust strain, but they pretended to be suffering from famine and requested emergency aid. Despite advice to the contrary, King Fuchai concurred and dispatched Wu's reserves. The next year, when they received Yue's superior grain in repayment, they decided to use it for planting. Now, having anticipated this, Yüe had deviously heated it all so it could never germinate. The dilabating famine that ensued vividly attests to warfare's increasingly perverse nature. The historical records preserve numerous examples of successfully implementing such measures. While no one again proposed such a highly detailed program, the thrusts continued to be acknowledged. Thus, Li Chuan devoted a lengthy chapter, Techniques for Secret Plans, to the core measures in his Tang Dynasty Tai Bai Yin Jing, and the full text may be found in my Taoist Spycraft and my translation of Tai Bai Yin Jing's theoretical chapters, Strategies for the Human Realm. A few points from his appraisal are particularly worth noting, beginning with the essential measures and their necessity. He begins by citing Sunzi. Quote, military techniques that achieve 100 victories in 100 battles are not the height of excellence. Rather, subjugating the enemy's forces without engaging in combat is the pinnacle of excellence. The pinnacle employs plots and plans. The next highest, human affairs. And the lowest undertakes warfare by attacking. Those who employ plots and plans mystify and confuse the enemy's ruler. They secretly influence his slanderous ministers to affect his affairs. They muddle him with sorcerers and soothsayers, and they cause him to respect ghosts and serve spirits. They have him indulge in colors and embroidery, while cheapening the value he places on grain and foodstuffs, thereby emptying out his granaries and warehouses. They send him beautiful women to unsettle his mind, and dispatch skilled carpenters to lure him into constructing palaces, rooms, and high towers, in order to exhaust the state's wealth and dissipate its strength in labor, thereby changing the ruler's nature and inducing licentious practices. Now, Li Chuan dramatically correlates the measures with their effects. For example, when he has become extravagant, brutal, arrogant, and dissipated, his worthy ministers will bite their tongues and won't be willing to correct or support him. When he grants overflowing rewards and perverts punishments, deciding them solely by his own happiness or anger, the government's orders won't be implemented. When you block off the ruler's access to external information and debauch him with licentiousness, you attack him with the lure of profits, you pleasure him with music, you nurture his tastes, and you cause him to regard the deceitful as trustworthy, the trustworthy as deceitful, the loyal as rebellious, and the rebellious as loyal, then those who offer loyal remonstrance will perish, and sycophants will be rewarded. When he exiles worthy men to the wilds, retains menial men in official positions, issues urgent orders, and imposes brutal punishments, the people will not sustain his mandate to rule. This is termed overthrowing the ruler through secret plots without fighting. Thank you for watching.